Welcome to Work It Out with TeKay Brown Taylor. She's an HR powerhouse and certified mediator in the CSRA. Conflict is everywhere, in our homes, our day-to-day transactions, and especially in the workplace, where good HR processes and policies can fall short. Save time, save money. Don't rush to litigate, mediate. Visit brownstonemediation.com. Now here's TeKay and Neil.
Pleased to welcome back certified mediator TeKay Brown Taylor. How are you?
I'm well, Neil. How are you?
Fantastic. Why don't we get started with what is the difference between mediation and arbitration?
The difference between mediation and arbitration, I liken it to, well, let me start this. Mediation is an alternative, both are alternatives to litigation.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say alternative, it's often referred to as alternative dispute resolution.
ADR.
ADR, that's a short word for it. Arbitration, however, is the parties electing an individual, a third party, to act as a judge. The easiest way for the normal person to get a great example of it is court TV.
Mm-hmm.
That's arbitration. That's a form of arbitration.
Okay, I follow you, and we're going to touch on that in just a little bit in terms of if they're real or not. So why would individuals or businesses come to you to mediate?
Well, first, why mediate? One is because it's a proven method.
Mm-hmm.
It's faster than going through a normal process of court and back and forth with attorneys. It's quicker, it's more flexible, save time, save money, and more importantly, you preserve relationships. Think about it. If I walked into a courtroom and I perceive it not to be fair, when I walk out, I'm probably not going to be, as anxious to have an investment in that relationship.
Mm.
And for us, mediation is all about resolving and reconciling the relationship. And if I perceive a process as unfair, I probably will not have interest in it. And mediation allows for the parties to come in and sit across the table, have an opportunity to talk about and hear the other individual's position, perspective, and walk away with being in control on how that issue is resolved, being in control of the outcome.
They say timing is everything. So when is the right time to mediate?
Early. Early is best. The key to success is early. Even though I say that, though, it's never too late to mediate. It's never too late to mediate. So whenever there are issues that, particularly in the workplace, when conflict starts to negatively impact the workplace, when it becomes unproductive, mediation is a considerable option. Too often, though, Neil, if I'm honest, is we get involved at the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th hour. We get to knock at the door when it's been going on for a year, it's been going on for 2 years, and we get invited into, and although I like to consider me and my team superheroes, and we do well in that environment, but if we can get in there, just imagine if we can get in there a year earlier, sooner, the hurt, the resentment, the broken trust, we're able to manage that a little better. So early. Mediation should always be a considerable option.
So the earlier part is alternative dispute resolution. If it's late in the game, it's BDR, bitterness dispute resolution.
I love that.
Right? So sometimes, and that could be husband-wife?
Absolutely. Husband and wife, any relationship, employer, employee, business partner, business owner,
vendor,
neighbor.
Wow.
Whenever it's relationship.
Okay. Right? Put us in the facility, if you will. If there is a mediation, am I going into an office building? Am I going into a courtroom? Where does this take place?
So those are all viable options. And so court annex, another word, court-ordered mediation will likely happen potentially in a courtroom. The courtroom would provide a space for that mediation to occur. For us, in private mediation, we have our office, and we also, which is an in-person election, if the individual is interested in doing in-person, which I value. But COVID has also taught us that virtual is just as comparable means of doing conflict resolution as well. So we have in-person and virtual options.
Gotcha. Well, if you've ever been home during the day, in the morning or the afternoon, you might have seen Judge Judy and some of the other judge shows. So on the other side of the break, we'll find out if those shows are real and what nuggets we can sort of take from that situation. Please stick around. Conflict is everywhere, and we're here to work it out. We'll see you in just a few.
You're listening to Work It Out with TeKay Brown Taylor from Brownstone Mediation Services. Family, business, your workplace. What is conflict costing you? Visit brownstonemediation.com to see how you can find a resolution and maybe even a reconciliation of a broken relationship. That's brownstonemediation.com.
Welcome back. Well, I grew up watching Judge Judy. I'm from New York, and she's like a New York firecracker. You know, she's a diminutive lady, but boy, she can really get on to people.
Have you ever met her or seen her in person?
I have not. Have you?
I have not.
Wow. Have you watched her, or what other kinds of judge shows are out there?
There's tons. I actually was watching Judge Ross this morning, but my favorite is Judge Mathis out of Chicago. I'm from St. Louis, but I love Judge Mathis. But there's so many. Judge Millian, the Hot Bench, where 3 judges.
Yes.
Even comedians have judge shows now. Steve Harvey has a judge show. Miss Pat has a judge show. They're both comedians, very great at being comedians. And so those are some very interesting popular culture judge shows.
What can we learn about the judge shows that maybe can apply to what you're doing with mediation?
What can we learn about them? Well, the takeaway, because I use it just as I did a moment ago as a great example, because that's what popular culture individuals are accustomed to seeing and what they recognize and they can relate to, is I often use the judge shows to refer to the difference between arbitration and mediation, because it is a very process. It looks like court because you have the judge in the robe, you have the gavel, you have the individuals who are giving testimony, the witnesses, all that looks like court, real court. It's not real court, but it is a real show. But the difference is in mediation is that they both have that third party. And so that's the takeaway, is that they both have that neutral third party. But if you listen to the court TV, the credits before and after the show, it will say these parties have agreed for this third party to render a decision on their issue.
And that's arbitration.
And that's arbitration, which looks very different than mediation. In my team as mediators, is we are third parties as well, but we are helping the parties get to a place to be able to make a satisfactory decision.
But they still have to agree in the long run.
They have to agree, but we don't need witnesses. We don't need evidence. We don't need all that, those things that are associated with a legal process. I think the other thing that I should probably call out is that even though that's arbitration on TV, that's very public, arbitration in the general sense, in the normal sense of a legal process, is often private. And so most times when you see clauses in contract and agreements, they will have an arbitration clause. And if you pay attention to your phone, you go buy any product and you pull out that little white paper that's folded up, that has all that fine print, read it in the fine print. It likely 100% of the time will have an arbitration clause as opposed to a mediation clause.
Wow. Do you still think that that is a good entree for people to learn about the court system maybe before it gets real and they would come see you?
Absolutely. Everything is a learning experience and a teacher. So any medium that you can use to get individuals familiar with the process, that's the great thing about Brownstone Mediation Services and what we do. When we think about mediation and what mediation is, it's often associated with a legal process. We focus on the human relations side of it. And so a lot of what we do is educating the public on ADR and forms of ADR from an education and learning standpoint. And for learning for us means a change in behavior. And so we are constantly, through our social media channels, our website, trying to educate the public on what I say is the unknown option, which is mediation.
Well, there are differences in whether you choose TeKay Brown Taylor or there's other mediators in the CSRA. So, what are those differences to help you make a good decision? We'll see if you qualify as well on the other side of the break. Let's work it out. We'll see you in just a bit.
You're listening to Work It Out with TeKay Brown Taylor from Brownstone Mediation Services. Family, business, your workplace. What is conflict costing you? Visit brownstonemediation.com to see how you can find a resolution and maybe even a reconciliation of a broken relationship. That's brownstonemediation.com.
Well, we're back with our mediation segment with TeKay Brown Taylor, a certified mediator in the CSRA. I hadn't asked you this before, but how many years have you been a mediator?
So I've been a mediator since 2008. I've been doing it as a solo practitioner, business owner for 6 years.
Why did you decide to go out on your own, I suppose?
I decided, well, actually, I would say due to a corporate restructure, because I was working in corporate America prior to fully stepping out on my own into mediation. And in fact, I had started the business before I accepted the role with corporate, and I thought I could do both. And unfortunately, I quickly learned that I did not have the capacity to run a business as a mediator and then, of course, be in corporate America. But that restructure and me knowing in the work that I was doing as an HR professional, realized that mediation was very much an unknown and underutilized tool. And so it was just the right thing to do, is to step out in doing business in what I was gifted in.
Yeah.
And felt there was a grave need for, essentially.
And if you don't know, TeKay has been serving our country for a few decades, more than 20 years.
Yeah.
Been in HR for many, many years, as you mentioned, in corporate America and through the military, through a large school system as well.
Pretty much.
And now you're an entrepreneur, business owner, so you have those responsibilities. How should someone decide whether to choose a mediator or not?
Well, due diligence. And I often find that does not happen well. And I liken it to as a chef. There are lots of chefs, but not every chef can produce a 5-star meal, right? Would you agree with me?
Oh, I would.
And so it's really important, just as you would pick any professional, is to do your due diligence, do your research. We do our best to provide ample information to educate you so that you're able to make an informed decision. But there are some things that you absolutely have to consider. Things like experience. You just asked me about my experience. Does the mediator have experience? How much experience do they have? What types of cases do they mediate? What associations and networks are they a part of? That's very, very important. I'm great because of the people I'm associated with as well. Believe that, because they stretch me and push me as well as I stretch and push them. We're always learning. As well as cultural competence is a big one that I find is missing in a lot. I'm able to relate, and it's true, and some may not want to have that conversation, but cultural competence is important. I can relate to individuals, one, because I'm a woman, one, because I can relate to that minority experience, the Black experience, those type things. That's not necessarily always a differentiator, but it's important to consider.
Sure.
Even interpersonal skills along with that. Just because you're smart doesn't mean you're relatable.
Well said. Just because you're smart doesn't mean you're relatable. All right, I'm gonna remember that one. We're continuing with TeKay Brown Taylor, a certified mediator. Brownstonemediation.com is the website. Look at the last several months. Has there been a trend? Like, are there certain kinds of conflicts that you've been helping to resolve?
Well, I would say it's unfortunate, but the family divorce never seems to go away.
Yeah.
Never seems to go away. So that's always going to be a running theme. And honestly, we're moving more so to the workplace and the business side, but even the family mediation is important to a business owner.
Oh, because if you're not focused, if you're not, what do they say, happy wife,
happy life. Very much.
For the male business owner, that's really important because it will filter down.
And even the female business owner, think about it. If your leaders are in conflict at home, their decision making diminishes.
Yeah.
Their leadership, it shows up in the workplace. And so and that's why I'm really, hesitant to completely remove from family mediation, because I still see how that connects to the workplace, how it connects to business, is and I say this even for our youth. We just got asked just yesterday to help an organization to develop their youth program with conflict management, conflict resolution skills. And although we're not working as strongly as we used to with youth, these young people, they grow up and become adults and they become employees. And so we don't want to take our hand off of that, because at the end of the day, mediation is a tool, and it really is about the conflict capacity, the skills. And so the sooner we can get in and be able to help people, whether that's a young person, someone that's in the family environment or the workplace environment, to be able to give them those skills, it's really important. And so we're still dibbing and dabbing in all three of those, but certainly the workplace is where we find most of our interest.
Understood. And before we let you go, if someone out there has a dispute, do you feel like they know enough about ADR, alternative dispute resolution, to maybe use mediation?
No, but it's getting better. And that's so interesting that you asked that question, because we did a lot of research when I first started this and trying to really identify if there was a need for this work. We did a survey a few years back and asked a very similar question about that. And overwhelmingly, 70-80% of respondents said they did not know enough about mediation to use mediation. And so despite the benefits, what we were saying, being able to maintain a relationship in a very difficult and high conflict situation, being able to save money, save time, all these benefits, it's unfortunate because you're not going to use something that you don't know enough about. Right?
All about education.
It's all about education. And so that's why we call it the unknown option, because there's still a lot of work where individuals do not understand mediation. Oftentimes I get asked, when I'm asked what I do and I say mediation, they immediately go to yoga, meditation, or they ask me if I'm an attorney. And so that's a huge misnomer, is that mediators are attorneys. And that's not true. There are mediators who practice law.
Right.
But mediators and attorneys cannot serve in the same role at the same time. It's unethical.
That's right. Well, we'll be continuing over the next several weeks to try and make you aware of a lot of the different layers involved in mediation. The website is brownstonemediation.com. There's a great newsletter that comes out that's informative and educational. And every single day on Augusta Business Daily, there's a short little video to kind of get you. It's like a devotional, I think. That's what it is. Mediation devotional.
Let's work it out.
Let's work it out. Thank you so much again, TeKay.
It's always a pleasure to sit here with you, Neil.
You've been listening to Work It Out with TeKay Brown Taylor from Brownstone Mediation Services. She's an HR powerhouse and certified mediator in the CSRA, specializing in conflict resolution with family, business, workplace issues, and small claims disputes. Remember, save time, save money. Don't rush to litigate, mediate. Visit brownstonemediation.com.